I'm Michael Jonas with Campaign.com, and I'm here with Ann and Michelle. And would you like to talk a little bit about Proposition 8?
Yes, it's a very scary proposition that would amend the California Constitution to outlaw gay marriage and to enshrine discrimination in the actual Constitution, where constitutions are supposed to protect minorities and not be used in this fashion. So it would deny the basic right of people to be able to marry the person that they choose, that they love. And Michelle and I actually got married legally on August 21st with our rabbi and family and friends in the backyard. And it's just being able to have our relationship recognized and like anyone else, and to have the same rights under the law as every other couple. We've been together 18 years, so we want the right to be recognized as a couple, and to have the security to know that if one of us was in the hospital, that the other person would be able to visit. And even though we are registered domestic partners, people don't know what that means, and it doesn't have the same recognition that marriage has. So it gives us a certain sense of security, and it's a very important right that is being threatened to be taken away.
And what do you say when someone comes up to you and says, you know, marriage is for a man and a woman, what are you doing? What's your simple response back to that?
Well, it used to be that it was illegal for people of different races to marry. And it took the courts to say that that was unconstitutional. And I think that, I mean, the person, they don't have to like it, but we have a society where people make choices, and that those choices need to be respected, and the law has to provide equal protection under the law for everybody. And if a particular religious group doesn't want to celebrate gay marriage in their churches, that's their decision. However, civilly, there has to be equal protection for every individual, and we've gotten to a point in our society that that form of discrimination is no longer tolerable, just like in, I guess it was the 1940s, when they first challenged those miscegenation laws and struck them down on the same basis, basically, as the California Supreme Court did.
Now, do you think being... Well, I'll ask Michelle this question. Do you think now being married changes your relationship in any way?
Well, we've been together 18 years, but in certain ways it does. I mean, it recognizes something legally and officially that existed, which is really important. People understand what marriage is, not so much domestic partners. I mean, at work I got a lot of congratulations just mentioning the word marriage. So that's kind of a very important thing. It is something that everybody knows and understands and celebrates, and I think it's also important too because it tells the state that we are a family, which we already are in an emotional sense, but it's very important for legal reasons as well, that Ann mentioned. And I would also like to say the scary thing about this proposition is that it actually puts in the Constitution discrimination, and this can be used as you know, it starts against us. It can be used against anybody. You know, you can take away somebody's right, and here is what's the word again? There's already a precedent for it. So I think that's what makes this particularly scary.
And let me ask you this: you know, there's propositions, and then there's cases, and Governor Schwarzenegger and some others said they would leave it up to the highest court of California to decide, and they did. And now we have this proposition afterwards. How do you reconcile the two, or how do you give heed to the court's decision and make sure that this proposition doesn't get passed?
Well, I think there's always a tension between the two branches of government, the executive and the judicial. But basically, the thing that should always, in my feeling, take precedence is the granting of a right, not the taking away of a right, especially if it's not going to harm anyone else, which I don't think in this case it will. I think that's very clear. So I think the governor was right in stepping aside and saying, okay, if that's what the court decides, then that's the law. And just to take it away, it almost, again, it sets up this precedent where a majority can deny rights to a minority, just, on whim.
Yeah, that's the importance of a constitution, is to protect rights that are ingrained in the Constitution to protect the minority, like freedom of speech. If a majority of people disagree with you, can you shut down that person? Can you put them in jail because they disagree? Can you ban their newspapers? It's minorities that are being protected, and as we've evolved as a society, we've recognized certain groups were denied full citizenship. Black people were denied full citizenship. Women were denied full citizenship. And gays and lesbians have been denied full citizenship. And we have come to recognize that in order to fulfill our own promise as a country, that we need to extend those rights and give equal protection and equal rights to everybody. And that's really what this was doing, and this is what the court was doing, relying on the precedent, striking down the discriminatory, racist discriminatory policies on marriage, to say marriage is a fundamental right, and there's no justification to deny people to be able to marry the person of their choice. And we don't want the government telling us who we can or cannot marry.
Now, let me ask you this. I know that you don't want Prop 8 to pass, but if it were to pass, you would have thousands of people who have already gotten married. What happens with those people? Do they file constitutional claims?
Wow, that's a
what would occur in your mind? Obviously, you are married, and that would be looking at the negative.
Right. It's really unclear. I've read a little bit about what people are saying would happen and what kinds of court challenges there may be, but it's really, that would be a major setback and really frightening. As I said, to ingrain in the Constitution discrimination is very, very frightening precedent. And we are kind of we'll be in a legal limbo. We have certain rights. We're also registered domestic partners. We have certain rights there, but we won't have the same recognition. When you go to the doctor, like I was at the doctor the other day, you fill out a form and they say spouse. There's no space for domestic partners. And so your family is not even there on the form. You have to kind of make your own line. And it's a big thing to first time to be able to say spouse, that I have a place on the form and I can be seen as family for purposes of next to kin, for medical emergencies, all this sort of thing. And you're seen that way if you use marriage, but if you don't have marriage, you're really quite invisible. Your relationship is invisible. You're not given the same protections. So you're left. We're going to be in a kind of a legal limbo. I mean, it's not going to affect our being together, but it means that we don't have the same recognition, the same safety, really. If something happens to one of us and we're in the hospital or something.
And let me play devil's advocate. I often like doing that. There's about 50-50 in the polls right now for Proposition 8, and there's more money that goes into yes on 8 than no on 8. Why would someone support it? I mean, I don't know if they've told you, or
why would someone support?
Why would someone support Proposition 8, or what have you heard is their reasoning, and what does that make you think of? I mean, someone says to you, we have to have Proposition 8.
I think there's a lot of fear and prejudice, just like there was fear and prejudice against interracial marriage, which people also thought was immoral, that was against God. There were people who thought that in the past. It's the same thing, that there are people who are quite extreme in their views.